Welcome to our second Social Capitalist Luncheon Series event. My name is Jennifer Baker-Jones, and it is my pleasure to serve as MC today. I'm the board chair at SCI, and I am pleased to support the organization because of all of the work they're doing across Eastern Massachusetts to connect neighbors. Today's event will feature the presentation of the 2022 SCI Idealist Awards. Before we go to the awards presentation, we're going to take a few minutes to hear about SCI's mission and recent accomplishments. First, let me introduce David Crowley, President and founder of SCI.
Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you everyone for coming today. Glad to see you here. Josh Ortiz is one of those kids everyone loves to coach. Now, Josh maybe didn't come to the Royals team that I coached in Little League with all the skills of some of the players that had the opportunity to go to paid travel team programs. But he came with a great attitude that you just can't learn from one of those programs. He was always showing up early to get the extra reps, chasing fly ball after fly ball. And as the season progressed, he was catching more and more of them and was really starting to deliver at the plate. Now, no, we do not have a baseball team at SCI, but the reason I start with this story is our theme here today is cultivating connections. That's what we're about. So it was natural when we started a new program called Leaders for an Equitable Tomorrow that I would reach out to Josh, building on a past connection I had. I had noticed that Josh had really also started to become a budding young activist at the local high school. And so I reached out and invited him to participate, and he became one of our star youth leaders in that program very quickly. That program, by the way, I should mention, Leaders for an Equitable Tomorrow, or LET, is a program that ties in with some important timely events. In the context of the recent terrible shooting in Buffalo, driven by that racist, white supremacist ideas, I should note that this is a program that has teens focusing on the intersection of racism and mental health. It's been important for us at SCI to find ways to figure out how we can address racism in our programming, bringing people together around topics of anti-racism work and awareness across different cultures, because we've been reminded way too frequently about how much work there is to be done in the space. Our second theme at SCI is about developing, just a little more word about some of our Cultivating Connections work. Since that's really been at the cornerstone of what we've done since we were founded 20 years ago. One of the very first projects we did as an organization was pulling together the Woburn community for the first anniversary of September 11th and doing some community events to commemorate that. We had dialogue programs at the library, hands-on service projects, and we also coordinated an interfaith prayer service and vigil. That same town common where we had that vigil on September 11, 2002, is also a place that we've returned several other times for events, bringing the community together. One of those times was back in 2016 in response to yet another wave of anti-Black racist violence. We collaborated with the local church and the city to bring people together to stand up and speak out about that topic. Just last year, found us at the same place, pulling together an AAPI support vigil that drew together a lot of folks, including many young people who spoke on the program, which was great to see. Which is a good segue to our second area of focus is developing leaders, which has again been something we've been doing for nearly 20 years now. But we are always looking to find ways to bring fresh new ideas to our programming. So over the past year, we developed a new program called the Youth Grant Pitch Contest. Through that program, teams of teens get to come up with ideas for addressing mental health needs of their peers, and they get volunteer coaching from volunteers from the business community who help them shape their ideas in their presentation. 5 of those groups successfully then presented their ideas to a panel of volunteer judges and were awarded funding to carry out their projects, some very exciting and impactful projects. We also work to develop leaders at the adult level as well. And in fact, our relatively new vaccine equity program has a big focus on training grassroots community leaders to reach out to their peers and educate them about the vaccine. So in that program, we've had Vitaly educating folks at her Haitian church, and Karina working to educate parents at the Lynn Middle School where her daughter goes. So developing leaders is a second key area of SCI's work. Finally, third part of our theme and tagline is strengthening communities. To describe this part, I could talk about many different kinds of SCI events and programs, from our new allyship curriculum to a highly successful new Juneteenth event that was put together thanks to the leadership of our Deputy Director, Phil Gordon, and along with Jennifer Jones. But I want to go back to Josh to close things out. Last Saturday, after we had run a successful vaccine clinic in the morning, I headed out to a local Asian American Heritage Festival. After passing by a group of little kids in their brightly colored costumes getting ready to perform, the next person I saw was Josh, greeting folks coming into the event. I had almost forgotten that earlier in the year I had connected Josh with the leader of that event, and sure enough, there he was helping make that event a success. So at first I was a little surprised because I forgot about that connection, but then I thought I shouldn't be surprised to see Josh here because he's the kind of young leader that anytime there's something going on that's about celebrating diversity and taking a stand against racism, Josh is going to be there. Toward the end of that day, I had a chance to sit down with Josh, and he was clearly tired. You know how it is running big events, and he had been running around all day, but he still wanted to chat. And he started peppering me with questions about, how did I go about starting SCI? And the reason was he wanted to glean some lessons because he's got an idea percolating about, he's very passionate after doing the Let Summer program. He's very passionate about getting some of his peers how to have systems to get greater access to mental health services, because that's clearly been a big issue over the last several years. So he is building up and thinking about how he can take that next step as a leader. Lifting up young leaders like Josh, connecting them to opportunities and people that can help them realize their amazing potential is crucial to developing the healthy and inclusive communities that we all desire. So thank you for supporting SCI today and joining us so we can continue to do that work. Thanks.
As you may know, the Social Capitalist Luncheon is our biggest fundraiser of the year. Your donations help SCI carry out its mission. We came into the luncheon series having raised over $65,000 already, thanks to our generous sponsors and donors. On behalf of the SCI board, let me say a big thank you to all of our sponsors. A special thanks to our gold level sponsors, Beth Israel Lahey Health, Cummings Properties, Eastern Bank, Liberty Mutual Insurance, and Point 32 Health Foundation. Now I would like to call upon Phil Gordon, SCI Deputy Director, to tell us about today's fundraising goal.
Thanks, Jennifer. As you noted, the generous response from sponsors and donors, we've raised over actually $66,000 coming into this luncheon series. Tuesday, we raised almost $6,000, and right now we're over $7,000, meaning we just need a little under $3,000 to reach our virtual event goal of $10,000. And that would put us well on our way to raising over $85,000 at our 2022 luncheon series by the end of this evening's reception. You can support SCI today by texting SCI 2022 to 50155 and follow the prompts to make your donation. After you text your pledge amount, you can complete the rest of the information later. You will get some friendly reminders. I'll check back later to check on that fundraising goal and share a little bit more about how your donation makes a difference.
Thank you so much, Phil. Now it's time to meet our first 2022 SCI Idealist Award recipient. For our introduction, I'm going to call upon the honoree's best friend, Omar Cabrera.
Thank you, Jennifer. First, let me start by congratulating all the recipients of this amazing award. Luckily, I only have 1 or 2 minutes because for his wedding, he told me I spoke too long during my best man speech, so I promised to keep it short. But it's my honor to present this award to not only my best friend, but to my brother from another mother. I could go on and share many personal and professional stories about Juanito, as I call him, but I will keep it simple and just say that when it comes to leadership, connecting diverse individuals and bringing people together, whether it's through his huge group of friends or career, no one does it better than Juan. But I'd rather tell you a quick story about Juan the person so you can all see what type of individual he is. Juan and I have known each other for 30 years, since the 8th grade to be exact. And as I mentioned earlier, I was the best man at his wedding. I'm also fortunate to be the godfather of his beautiful daughter, Ana Sofia, and I get to complete the trifecta today by presenting him with this amazing award. But the story I wanted to share with you is what my mother told me once about Juan. Long time ago, she said, "Hijo, if you one day have kids, I hope they are just like Juan, a very kind, humble, and big-hearted person." And I don't think any praise can get bigger than that coming from your mother. Because of that, because of this is the type of person Juanito is. And that's why it is my honor to present him with this award. In the words of his beloved dad, a una mejor persona, imposible. To a better person, impossible. Juanito, congratulations, hermano.
Oh, goodness. Okay, I knew well. Wow. Thank you, compadre. Let me collect myself here. Great to see so many people who I hold in such high regard, who I love. And thank you, compadre. I knew it had to be you to do this. When I was asked to select someone, it had to be my compadre, which, if you're not familiar with the phrase, the term in Spanish, it refers to, is a term that's used to refer to someone who's the godfather to your son or daughter. As someone mentioned, he's the godfather to Ana Sofia. So thank you for those very beautiful, kind words. You know, when I think about today, I honestly wouldn't be here if it weren't for the support of so many. My wife is on, I think, with at least one of our kids. I think my daughter, she had to drop off Juan David. He's the new Juanito, Juan Senior now. But with Juanito, I had to take him to school. My mom and sisters are on. I think my cousin, who's visiting from Colombia, is on. A lot of people who mean so much to me, and most importantly, too, my late dad, who's my biggest inspiration every day. I also see a lot of my colleagues from Beth Israel Leahy Health. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for believing in me. It'll be almost a year since I started in my role at Beth Israel Leahy Health as the inaugural Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, a role that I don't take lightly. It is a significant responsibility for the important work that we're all doing in community. Thank you, SCI and David, for your leadership. I saw Alberto Calvo, who is the original person who introduced me to SCI. He's over there at Compare grocery store in Chelsea. I think that's where I saw you in the photo there, Alberto. You know, SCI is focused on building social capital to foster youth success and healthy communities is commendable. You know, I've been very impressed, and mentioned earlier some of the programs. You know, I've been very impressed with the efforts around vaccine equity that SCI has had. The program called the Leaders for Equitable Tomorrow, which is a program that engages teens in exploring and developing action plans to address the intersection between racism and mental health. And those two are critical issues in our current times. The impactful work of SCI is really well aligned with Beth Israel Leahy Health's mission. And today I'm honored, grateful, and quite frankly, humbled to be recognized with two people who I admire deeply, Dr. Makeeba McCreary and James Morton. Simply just being within your company is a recognition in and of itself. And the theme, as was mentioned earlier, today is Cultivating Connections. And it could not be a better way to celebrate the great work that SCI does, bringing people with diverse lived experiences towards a common purpose for strengthening communities. Cultivating Connections is frankly the only way I've been able to get to where I am today. There have been too many mentors, friends, bosses, colleagues who along the way have opened up their networks to allow me in. I think of friends who allowed me and my family in when we first came to the US from Colombia in 1990 to live in a crowded apartment in Brighton. I think of the community health centers who allowed us in and provided care when we did not have health insurance as former documented immigrants. I think of a name that some of you may have heard, Steve Pemberton, who ran for senator in Massachusetts and opened the doors for me to get a full academic scholarship when he worked in the admissions office at Boston College way back in 1994. I only knew about this just a few years ago when I was grabbing lunch with Steve and he remembered my name. This is when I was working at Tufts Helpline, and we brought him in to give remarks to one of our resource groups. He remembered my name and he said that he actually turned a blind eye and accepted me, even though he wasn't supposed to because of my immigration status at the time, and allowed me into Boston College for an education that has gotten me to where I am today. I think of leaders like Bob Rivers, Eastern Bank CEO. He's a former recipient of this award who leverages his position of influence and privilege to open so many doors, and the list goes on. This Idealist Award is one that I humbly accept, but respectfully dedicate to a particular connection that was formed over the past few months and was publicly announced this past Monday. On Monday at the Dimmick Center in Roxbury, a group of more than 40, and actually since Monday, now there's more than 50 because so many have signed on, Black and Latinx leaders, including Makeeba, who's going to be recognized along with me, and many others who are part of this newly launched Health Equity Compact. And in case you missed the coverage, Globe had a story and WBUR, a few other outlets have had stories about it. This group is a diverse set of healthcare, business, and nonprofit leaders who have come together to, for the first time, make systemic change in healthcare to address the significant disparities that COVID laid bare, which resulted in more of our communities testing positive for COVID, being hospitalized, and dying from COVID. And it's about a year ago, within the span of a few weeks, my father-in-law, David Herrera, my uncle on my mom's side, my mom is on right now, my uncle Ivan, my mom's brother, and my uncle on my dad's side, Fernando Lopera, all died of COVID within the span of a few weeks. So addressing health inequities is personal to all of us who are part of this compact that I mentioned. So I dedicate this recognition to the Health Equity Compact because it exemplifies what SCI is all about, cultivating connections to strengthen community. So with that, I say thank you, muchas gracias. Thank you all for being here.
Congratulations, Juan. What a well-deserved recognition and your dedication there. This is a really important health compact. So thank you for sharing about it today. Now, before we get to our next award, I'd like to call upon Leah Mulrennan, SCI Development and Communications Manager, to tell us more about the SCI AmeriCorps program.
Thank you, Jennifer, and felicidades, Juan. You've got my tears going too. So, and congratulations to James and Makeeba, who we'll be hearing from shortly. So I have a long history with SCI, dating way back to my experience applying for and receiving a few youth council mini grants in high school with SCI, which only fueled my interest and passion for community service. So following college and some career exploration, I decided that I needed to find a career in nonprofit. So it was fitting that through some community connections, I found SCI again and joined the staff and led the SCI AmeriCorps program as the program manager for over 3 years. Then after gaining experience at a few other nonprofits, I am thrilled to be back at SCI in this new role, telling our story. Managing the AmeriCorps program is truly a privilege. If you aren't familiar, these members dedicate a year to service. They receive an education award and are paid a small stipend. I'm not sure small is enough to say there, but I think you know that's not what's motivating them. Each of them has their own story of why they serve. Our members connect young people with relationships, experiences, and the resources they need to succeed. Each year from September to June, SCI AmeriCorps members across Greater Boston are engaging in volunteer outreach and capacity building activities at our partner organizations. They increase volunteer engagement, provide leadership training, and create service learning opportunities for youth serving programs. Every member I've had the opportunity to know has had an impact on their community and on me. I am grateful to be able to learn from them, watch them grow, and most of all, be inspired by them. We will now have the chance to hear from one of our current AmeriCorps members, Jessica Webb, who is serving at Girls Inc. of Lynn. Thank you, Jessica, for your service and for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you, Leah. So my name is Jessica. The first question I always get is, why are you doing AmeriCorps? And when my mom was my age, she moved from Washington State to Ecuador to do the Peace Corps. So going from Los Angeles to Boston to do AmeriCorps was like small potatoes in my family. It's like nothing. But I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, and as much as I love my community and where I'm from, I experienced inner city violence that unfortunately comes with growing up in Los Angeles. So I always knew that I eventually wanted to get into something that had to do with reducing community violence. I ended up going in college to college that was located in the third safest city in America, which inside the third safest city in America is where I experienced and survived a mass shooting. So it doesn't matter how rich or poor communities in America are, but what makes the biggest difference in healing those communities after they experience community violence or just traumatic events as a whole is the resources that are provided to them. When I was in college, I was also exposed to the opioid epidemic in America and realized the connection between reducing community violence is so heavily tied with substance abuse prevention. So that's why I chose Girls Inc. as my host site. It was organized through SCI. So now I'm a youth leadership coordinator there, where I run a program where I have 5 high schoolers who create activities and lessons for middle schoolers and teaching them about substance abuse prevention. So that's how I got here. So thank you to SCI for just supporting me through my AmeriCorps term and being such a great help. AmeriCorps is definitely not one size fits all, but it is such an amazing launch into a career of service. So thank you, SCI, for helping me with my start.
Thank you, Jessica, for sharing how the SCI AmeriCorps program and your service has helped develop your skills and your initiative to continue to serve in the community. Now I want to call Phil back up to tell us more about about your donations and how they can make a difference.
Thanks, Jennifer. Your donations of any amount today help us strengthen communities. Let me give you a few examples of how we can put your donation to use. A $1,000 donation can support the grant for one team of youth carrying out a youth pitch contest project addressing mental health and racial equity issues. We hope to fund 10 of these groups in the coming program year. $500 supports one of SCI's community events that celebrate diversity, such as the upcoming Juneteenth event. It's just a quick plug. It's on Saturday, June 18th from 1 to 4 p.m. And I believe we have our keynote speaker on the line, Michael Curry. Thank you for being willing to speak at the Juneteenth event. We're definitely looking forward to that. And definitely stop by if you can. And last but not least, we are looking for donations to help support our SCI AmeriCorps members. A $100 donation provides lunch for one of our AmeriCorps training days, which we will be having in person again next year. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Phil. And of course, any amount that you donate is greatly appreciated. Just a reminder to text SCI 2022 to 50155 and follow the prompts to make your donation. Thank you so much for your support. Now it's time for our next SCI Idealist presentation. To make the introduction, I'd like to call upon Paul Francisco, Chief Diversity Officer and Head of Workforce Development Programs at State Street Corporation.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, David and SCI, for giving me the opportunity to introduce one of my best friends in the world. I am thrilled for her. But first, I wanted to also congratulate two really good friends as well, and James and Juan Fernando. Congratulations, well deserved. This is an amazing group. And so I'd like to tell you a little bit about Dr. Makeeba McCreary, the person. The professional, I think many of us know, but the person is really who I'm a big fan of. Makeeba is probably one of the most loyal, dedicated people that I know, humble, and likes to do her work behind the scenes. A lot of people don't understand or realize the impact that Makeeba has had in so many lives, and I can say thousands of lives very comfortably. From her days as the head of strategy for the Michael Jordan Foundation and all the grant making efforts in communities like Washington, D.C. and North Carolina and Oregon, Connecticut. Makeeba impacted many, many thousands of lives of young Black and brown kids in public schools. She did that as a chief of staff with BPS. She did that at the MFA. And all those things come from who she is. She is a community kid, grew up in the South End of Boston, went to school here for high school, and then moved on to the big city in New York. She's been an avid art collector, a hip hop head, a motorcycle riding diva, which a lot of people don't know. And for me and my family, she's been a best friend, an auntie, a sister to me and my wife, Betty, a great travel partner. We've traveled the world together. I'd never forget our vacation to Cuba, Paris, London, Portugal, so many different places, and hopefully many, many more places to go. And Makeeba, I can't think of anyone more deserving of this award than you. You've dedicated your life to build an equity and inclusion. And the work that you're doing now with NCF is just so critical. And having you be directly engaged and involved with efforts around building equity, not only in terms of economic access, but health equity, as Juan mentioned, and so many other things that you're doing. You're incredible. You're a fashionista, which a lot of people also don't know. And an avid art collector ever since even before your days at the MFA. But what makes you special, again, is your loyalty. It's your dedication to community. It's your dedication to your team, right? And anyone who's worked with you and for you can attest to that. And I see many of them here in this call. So I just want to congratulate you. It is my just complete honor to call you a friend. And I'll never forget that you made me cry last year. So I'll never forgive you for that. But I'm so thrilled for you, and congratulations on this award.
Thank you, Paul. It's okay, you got me back, Juan. It's unfortunate this is virtual because you'd be passing me the tissue box. Thank you so much, Paul, and to you and Juan and James. I cannot imagine being honored with two less fabulous individuals, but also quite serious individuals about the work that we have to do. I'm going to open with a poem by Amanda Gorman. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the lives that were lost in Buffalo. This is titled Surviving. These words not be for red, for our blood to run through them. When tragedy threatens to end us, we are flooded by what is felt. Our faces fluctuating, warped like an acre passing seasons. Perhaps the years are plotted and planned. Just like seeds in a fresh plowed field, when we dream, we act only with instinct. We might not be fully sure of all that we are, and yet we have endured all that we were. Even now we're shuddering, the revelation aching. It didn't have to be this way. In fact, it did not have to be. The gone are no threshold, no stepstone beneath our feet. Even as they did not die for us, we shall move for them. We shall only learn when to let this loss, like us, sing on and on. Thank you. There's such a deep connection to the work that I'm privileged to be doing with the new Commonwealth Racial Equity and Social Justice Fund. And I tell this story a lot. I won't repeat it here because many of you have heard it, but I will say that I do remember that moment when Paul and 18 other warriors in this city of Boston, Black and Brown, stepped forward and said that they were unequivocally not going to be patient any longer. I remember thinking, I want to be a part of that. I'm going to help in any way I possibly can. And here I am with this incredible honor. It's a bit cheesy, but I think of every day as we're building this fund, and I get frustrated or befuddled or try to figure out what comes next. I recall those 19 individuals, and I think of them as the wind beneath my wings, quite literally. And so for those of you who don't know as much about our fund, it is only about 2 years old, and these incredible founders raised $30 million towards a $100 million goal. We're now close to 40, and we are focused on interrupting and dismantling systemic racism across a varying range of different areas, all of which should be incredibly familiar to you, because you're all also doing work in these spaces of policing and criminal justice reform, health equity, economic empowerment, youth development, and identity and culture narrative. It's important to be critical, I think. And so this story today for me is about talking about truths, right? Like, we have to acknowledge that something quite horrific has just taken place not days ago, but we also have to find the reasons to keep moving forward and to be hopeful. But we can't skip that truth-telling part, right? And so I want to share some words from this incredible brother, Edgar Villanueva, who wrote a book called Decolonizing Wealth. Bear with me, it's not too long, it's a little bit sassy, but it will take me a moment. Philanthropy moves at a glacial pace. Epidemics and storms hit, communities go underwater literally and metaphorically. Black and brown children get shot dead or lose their youth inside jail cells. Families are separated across continents, women are abused and beaten and raped. All of Rome burns while we fiddle with another survey on strategies, another study on impact. Other sectors feel the heat of competition, not us. We politely nod at the innovations of the business sector. It takes us half a century to implement one of them. We indulge those who say that diversity is important by conducting several decades of analysis, hiring consulting groups with absurd price tags. We publish reports, we create a task force and debate mightily over what to call it. We do not actually change, not more than superficially. This is philanthropy. We are the family that embarrasses me and infuriates me, but it is still my family, my relations, and I believe in redemption. It's from the place of calling this family to a better self that I write, philanthropy, honey, it's time for an intervention. And I want to propose that not just New Commonwealth Fund is the intervention to decolonizing philanthropy, but also all of my colleagues who have been working on this forever. Like, we can't pretend that we're just starting all over again each time we show up on the scene. And so I have solutions. And I didn't create the solutions. I'm borrowing some solutions from Adrienne Marie Brown, Emergent Strategies. And she says we should ask ourselves these questions. What are your gifts? If you are assessing for creating more possibility, are you living a life that honors all of your gifts? If yes, how did you create all of this possibility for yourself? And if no, how can you create more possibility today, tomorrow, this month, this year? I'm going to close, and you can see that there's a theme here, which is really, it started with about a week and a half ago. I had the pleasure of being at an event at the Museum of Fine Arts Boston celebrating Black arts and artists. And Portia Yewola, who is a poet laureate for the city of Boston, she gave a poem in response to a poem that's on the wall at the museum in a collection that talks about what kind of president this artist wants. And this is Portia's response to that, which is, and so I think perhaps if I cannot rely on a president, perhaps I can rely on a poem to change and lead us, to make swift our hearts, to make the immovable a free fall. And so maybe what I want is a poem for president. I want a poem for a flag. I want a poem for my mother pedaling each sidewalk. So I will walk remembering. Instead of the law, hand me literature, hand me a bill that is an ode to this body, this life lived. For every TV ad, give me a portrait poem, a love epistle to a partner, gone or still here. It can be about a field, about the color purple. It can be about an ocean I keep having to cross, a poem about the best meal you've ever had. I know it will end hunger sooner than any man can. I don't want a president. Instead, I want a poem, a prayer, a whistle of this boiling heart, a sweet song to whisk us all into revolution. So thank you, SCI, for inviting this platform for us to hold space to talk about truth and reality, but also to be hopeful and to move with urgency. And Paul, I love you and thank you so much for your words. We are a family.
Thank you so much, Makeeba, and congratulations on your award. And thank you so much for the poetry that you shared with us. So meaningful and powerful, and never more so than in this moment. So I'd like to take a quick look at our fundraising goal just before we approach our final presentation. It looks like right now we've raised just over $8,000 from our luncheon series event. So thank you so much to everybody who has already contributed. And just a reminder that you can still text SCI 2022, SCI 2022 to 50155 and follow the prompts to be able to make your contribution. Now it's time to meet our final 2022 SCI Idealist. For the introduction, I'd like to call upon Evelyn Cupp, Board Chair of the YMCA of Greater Boston.
Thank you very much. And first, I'd just like to congratulate each of the Idealist Award recipients. Sometimes I think idealists maybe get a little bad rap as you know, not realistic, and I think today certainly proves that hope and the hope to make concrete changes in our communities is alive and well in these three idealists. And I think that's just wonderful that you guys are taking the time out to recognize these folks. As chair of the board of YMCA, I am honored to introduce James Morton as who is our president of the YMCA and CEO. James is both a lawyer and educator, having graduated from Northeastern University School of Law and having taught in the Springfield school system prior to his career at the Y. James lives his life serving others, and he's been part of the YMCA movement officially since 2002. Serving both in the Springfield and Hartford YMCAs before coming to lead the YMCA of Greater Boston just over 7 years ago. I'd like to say we're smart, but we had some intuition for sure. And when we hired James, what struck us most was his focus on current and potential partnerships and his proven ability to connect people within the communities he serves. Since coming to Boston, James has not disappointed. James has consistently proven the strengths of these partnerships in addressing the needs of our communities. James serves on a wide variety of boards and committees, including the Mass Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, Boston After School and Beyond, My Brother's Keeper Advisory Board, and Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center Board of Overseers, just to name a few. What we did not know when we hired James was 5 years later, as the pandemic hit, the partnerships he's cultivated, coupled with his agility to focus and his inspirational leadership, would allow the Y to address the most urgent needs in our community. James rolled up his sleeves and jumped right in to lead our staff and organization to scale our efforts, whether it be addressing food insecurity, serving meals to children, elders, and families, creating essential worker daycare centers, or establishing learning centers to help minimize COVID-related learning loss. Being able to meet these challenges and achieve real results quickly speaks volumes to the trust placed in James and his team, because he had been focused on these partnerships and communities all along, not just as the pandemic hit. I believe James embodies those idealistic values that SCI seeks to celebrate today, and it's my pleasure to introduce James Morton. James?
Thank you very, very much, Evelyn, for that kind and generous introduction. I want to, in particular, thank you for your service as chair of our board. And I also want to thank you for your daily support of me with your insights and your commitment to our mission. I could never thank you enough. Before I go on with my formal remarks, I want to take a moment to thank Makeeba for drawing our attention to the tragic events that took place in Buffalo this weekend. 10 lives were lost for no other reason than because they were Black. And that is completely and totally unacceptable in this day and in this time. And so we still have a lot of work to do. And I think that SCI is challenging us to do that work together. And so that is their mission, and that is our mission. In particular, their mission is to strengthen community by connecting diverse individuals and organizations through civic engagement. And so we're here to celebrate their mission, but we're also here to celebrate the contributions of a small cohort of diverse leaders who have been provided with opportunities to cultivate connections with other diverse leaders and other diverse organizations. And in that regard, I want to congratulate Juan and Makeeba for their great work as connectors and as servant leaders in the greater Boston community. We are all honored to be recognized as idealists, and we accept this recognition. I accept this recognition on behalf of the YMCA of Greater Boston and our many, many partners. I represent thousands of individuals who work every single day to build connectivity and belonging in the communities that we serve. We do this by putting people first, listening and then serving, and inspiring hope for a better community for all of us. You know, I therefore accept this incredible honor on behalf of the staff and the board of the Y of Greater Boston, and on behalf of our many partners, on behalf of our connections in the community, on behalf of those we serve. And I promise that we, as the Y of Greater Boston, will continue to cultivate and deepen our relationships in the community, our partnerships and collaborations in support of those we serve. We will continue to align our strategic priorities with other organizations like SCI in order to bring about transformational change in Greater Boston. We will continue to partner with SCI to host AmeriCorps members like Becky, who has joined us this year. And we will continue to partner with SCI and others to bring educational and cultural experiences to English language learners in communities throughout Greater Boston, including Woburn. We will continue to do these things in partnership with SCI and others for one simple reason, and that is because we must. You see, we can't deny that together we are stronger, that together we are smarter and bolder, together we are more capable and more resilient, together we are more impactful. In our community of Greater Boston demonstrates on a daily basis that teamwork makes the dream work. And you know, as a result of that teamwork during the last 2 years, the YMCA, in partnership with other organizations, 100 organizations, in fact, have been able to deliver more than 15 million meals and counting throughout Greater Boston. We've partnered with EBA, the BASE, and Latinos for Education to create community learning centers that provided those trusted places and spaces in the community where our children could get their remote learning lessons, be enriched, and be provided with food and fun. We partnered with Boston After School and Beyond and its many partners to provide summer learning opportunities last summer for 1,400 children in the city of Boston. And I could go on and on, because the fact of the matter is that everything we do at the Y of Greater Boston is done in partnership with others. We do absolutely nothing alone. We do everything in partnership. So connections, the theme of today, is really critically important to us. So in closing, I want to thank SCI for this incredible recognition. I'm honored to be an idealist, and I'm honored to be a part of an idealist community. I want to thank my colleagues and coworkers at the Y of Greater Boston, our incredible board of directors, and our many, many community partners. I want to thank, last but not least, my wife, Dawn Fontaine, who makes all things possible. Those are the real idealists. And thank you, David Crawley and your SCI team, for all you do in support of our community. Everyone, have a blessed day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and congratulations, James, on your well-deserved award. Before we close today, let's take a look at how we're doing on our fundraiser. We are now up to just over $9,000. So thank you so much. We are creeping up to that $10,000 goal, and we're so appreciative to all of you for the support you've given today. Again, you can text SCI 2022 to 50155 to make your contribution. And even if you just want to save that, it remains open even after we close this event today. On behalf of the SCI team, I would like to thank you for coming to today's virtual presentation of the 2022 SCI Idealist Awards. I hope to see many of you at this evening's Idealist Award reception at District Hall in the Seaport. You can contact Leah Mulrennan if you aren't already on the guest list but would like to attend, and her info will be in the chat. One more thank you to our gold level sponsors, Beth Israel Lahey Health, Cummings Properties, Eastern Bank, Liberty Mutual Insurance, and Point 32 Health Foundation. Thank you all for your support of SCI and for supporting our amazing honorees, Juan, Makeeba, and James. I think you can all agree with me that today was just an outstanding hour shared with some amazing leaders in Boston. So thank you so much for celebrating with us today. This officially concludes our program, but we'll leave the Zoom open for a few minutes if anyone would like to stay and chat informally. Thanks so much for being with us today.